I got a start in photography in my teenage years. The idea of capturing an image just excited me in a way. It was like you captured this moment in time, and seeing it come to life was just, it's magic. I just kind of caught the bug. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know how I was going to do it, what that meant. I just pursued it. When I'm working, my work is a reflection of who I am. My work is how I view the world. Whatever is going on in my life, whatever I experience, or whatever I see, it's just a pure reflection coming through me creatively. And that's what ends up being made. If you're going through depression or anxiety or anything like that, that shows up in your work. I always want people to be able to come up to the pieces and bring their own interpretations to them. And what I mean by that is they have a connection to it. I don't want to force the connection. I don't want to tell them what they're supposed to be feeling, tell them what they're supposed to be experiencing. Usually, people can connect in an emotional way, whether it's nostalgic or any range of emotion. They bring their own interpretations to it, and they connect to it on an emotional level. And that's really the goal. Creatively, every series I do, it's not for anyone. It's just me working, expressing myself, and again, interpreting the world as the way I see it and using my creative process to make images. You're going out there to explore. You're going out there to find your subject. That's the most exciting thing about photography for me. You don't know what you're going to find, really. You have an idea, you can research, you can do all of those things, but until you get there, until you start working it out, you don't really know what you're going to capture. And that's exciting. It's exciting to travel, to find these places and to figure out how you're going to capture them. The unknown elements of it, the way people are positioned, there's so many variables and elements to it that when it comes together, it's super exciting. Pieces of You is a series that I started in Barcelona, Park Güell, Gaudi's park. I was shooting it wide with people in it, and it kind of dawned on me because I was also there in Spain shooting aerial beach work. The aerial beach work is focused in, right? It's a very tight shot. As I was walking around the park, I was like, wait a minute, what if I focus in on these small areas? Because there's some really interesting things going on in there. And then I just got obsessed with it. Whenever you get inspiration as an artist, you have to hang on to that. Dreams and Journeys was a series I started back in 2007. I was going through Europe. My goal at the time was to shoot interiors, and I didn't have the right equipment to do it. Then I stepped outside and saw this beautiful architecture and a sea of people around. I started photographing that. That's how the series was born. It was just something that didn't work out, and I pivoted and found something that was really inspirational. This interaction of people on vacation, seeing these beautiful monuments, seeing these beautiful buildings, the interaction between the two subjects intrigued me. After a vacation, it kind of lives in your memory. You have moments that you remember. You remember certain aspects of it the way you'd remember a dream. I knew I had something. I knew I had something special. The Endless Summer series has been my longest body of work to date. It was one of my first inspirations as an artist. I would spend my summers in the Jersey Shore at my grandfather's beach house, surfing with my dad. First, it's the smell of the salt air. That hits you and just brings back floodgates of memories. The waves crashing, the feeling of the sand on your feet, simpler times, aspirational times, coming of age. It just was a really unique time in my life that I always look back on. And it's always given me so much inspiration. That's why I keep going back to the beach. I do often get asked if I place people. Is this real, or did you change the composition? Did you manipulate these people? Did you put them in digitally? I don't have to. People are there on the beaches. I do know artists that do that, but that's part of their process. That's a part of them making art. For me, it's about finding a moment, finding a feeling, finding a composition, and capturing it. Sunsets and fireworks started during the pandemic. I would watch the sunset every night. I'd go down to the lake. It was one little piece of something I kept returning to, and the sunset kept sticking with me. I wanted to do something interesting with them. I was working on a previous series where I was lighting off fireworks in big, interesting landscapes. That idea wasn't really going anywhere, and then it just clicked one day. I was sort of like, oh yeah, sunsets and fireworks. There's trial and error in all this. I set the one print on fire, and I had to extinguish it, and then it's like, okay, it's a little too close. It's an interesting way of working. You can't necessarily predict when to hit the shutter, so you kind of have to just be hitting the shutter very fast. There's luck and chance, and do it again and again and again, and hopefully you get it in the right area. You get what you're looking for. All these elements need to line up for that composition to come together. I was shooting in Portugal, and I was looking for a new perspective. There's very high cliffs, and the beaches are very low. And I started shooting from these cliffs. After that photo shoot, I was looking at the images and I just kept thinking, wait a minute, I gotta get higher. How do I get higher? The first time I went up in the helicopter, it's a very unnerving feeling. You're hanging out of it at a high altitude. Wind is shaking you around and there's turbulence. There's definitely times where I'm grabbing the seat. But as soon as I'm looking through the camera, all that goes away. You have X amount of time to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. You have an idea of what you're gonna shoot. But once you're up there, you don't know what the composition's gonna look like. It's surprising always to find new, interesting things. If I see an area that I like, we might spend only 10 minutes there. And honestly, I could come back with nothing. You really don't know until you get there what you're gonna find. When the process starts of shooting, you're researching, then you travel, then you come back and you kind of decompress from that. You're going through your images. And a lot of times I'll let things sit for sometimes 6 months to a year because I like a fresh perspective on it so I can get excited about it again. You start your editing process, going through the images, and then you start printing. And in the printing aspect, now you're making something. Then you start mounting them, doing them large scale. You're seeing the actual images come to life. Once they're in the gallery, that's a great experience because when you're making them in the studio, you don't really get a chance to look at them and to experience them. But when they're hung on a wall, you get to step back, you get to enjoy it, you get to really look at it and see it in a different way. Polaroid film is very instrumental in my entire career. It's how I started off. My thesis in university was shot with Polaroid, and it was the first successful body of work I ever made. I did my first exhibition at the Toronto Outdoor Art Show, and then I got my first gallery through that work. It was the first glimpse that I could create something, people connected to it, were excited enough to purchase it. There's a lot of failures. You can't let those get you down. You can lose your way. You gotta move past disappointment. You gotta move past failure. You gotta move past so many hurdles. But if you just hold still and keep going, you're gonna get somewhere. At this point in my career, every day is just thinking about art. I mean, it's my life.